So, Jose, could you tell us a bit about the art that you make?
So let me look at
You
this
want to
and
read the
it.
bio?
I focus right now. My primary focus is mural work. It is my bread and butter. It's how I pay my bills. But I also do paintings for gallery shows and whatnot, and private commissions, along with merchandising. So T-shirts, stickers, patches, and kind of periodically run that format where I go to art fairs and showcase, my work there, like renting a table and then having a booth. So, yeah.
Awesome. Could you tell us a bit more about your physical process?
Yeah. So when it comes to murals, it's multiple layers of work. So I start by buffing a wall, so primer paint, and then I spray paint. So my primary two mediums are spray paint and oil-based paint markers. So spray painting, the background colors and whatnot, and then when I'm at a place where I feel comfortable to start pattern work, then I'm using straight edges to draw the pattern in mind. And a lot of times, I've done so many of them that I don't need much prep work. I kind of can visualize a pattern on any given wall depending on the layout and stuff. So yeah, that's my process.
Wow. So do you design it digitally first, or do you just go straight to the wall?
I can go straight to the wall. If a project needs a mock-up, then sure, Photoshop kind of a general idea of what I want to do. But it's hard for me to follow the precise, the mock-up itself. I'll deviate from that, and as long as people are on board with that idea, then they typically let me kind of run with my ideas because of my track record of showing like I can fulfill the kind of like the conventions of the contract or whatever it is. So
awesome. And how long have you been a full-time artist?
So we were having this conversation earlier this week. I would say maybe 2010 is when I really started to think about the financial aspects of like how to sustain myself. But I was married at the time, and so I was in a situation where I wasn't the primary source of income. But it had been long before that. Like, I think philosophically, I had been devoting myself to art probably since 1998. That's when I kind of was like working less, traveling, becoming more kind of like creative in the way I was approaching my life. And when I really started to think about myself as like an artist through and through, going to art school, devoting, kind of like that's where I devoted my time, energy, and resources, was to kind of like the artistic practice. So
awesome. Is that when you also started thinking about yourself as a business owner, or did that come later?
It's funny because it's like, it's kind of, I guess I am, but I think because I'm in this mental space where I don't think of myself that way. Same thing with entrepreneurship. I'm like, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I am an entrepreneur. Totally. And so business, yeah, I would say it's around that. I think I had a hard time answering that because I'm like, what does constitute as like businessman? Like, when was I a business person? And I think it's when I really started to see tangible results in sales. Like when I'm like actually having a show and selling work, and I'm like, shit, this is the exchange. This is the like, this is a feasible thing. Like making art, the thing that, I know a lot of you, like that many of us like do because we're driven and we can't not do it. And somehow you create an economy for yourself is in many parts. It's like, it's surreal. It's like that people are willing to invest their money into something that you do, like your own visions for, you create this alchemy, something out of nothing. I think that's pretty incredible. So, so to answer your question, it's like, yeah. So I would say around that same time, like the Bows and Arrows show in 2011, that year, 2011, was when I had kind of a series of solo shows. Kind of it was like my coming out party for Sacramento. Like people didn't really know me, and then they were attending my shows and seeing my work for the first time. So
yeah, I kind of think my opinion of when an artist becomes a business owner is when they file their taxes as an artist for the first time, and they're actually paying taxes on the income they make for their artwork.
Yeah.
So I assume you started doing that.
It would have been around then, but it was. I mean. Like I said, I was married at the time, and it almost felt akin to like working in a boutique while the income was elsewhere. Like how we were paying our mortgage was through other means. I was sort of like, it was relatively, I was basically taking my money and just pumping it right back into my projects, my future projects, but I wasn't thinking like, how am I going to pay my gas and like water bills, like that. The money didn't go to that. So that would have been 2014 when I got divorced and was like, okay, like we are upping this game. Like this is really serious. Like I put all my chips into, like, this is my skill set, is to make things, is to make art. And so I really need to think about how I'm going to pay rent for and like allow for my girls to eat. I have 2 teenage daughters, so yeah.
Yeah, so what did that look like more practically in 2014 when you're like, oh, I need to make money from my art that's not only going to fund my art projects, but will also fund my life and to help me support my family? What were some things that you started thinking about, like how you would plan your art practice for the year, or where the money was going to come from? Could you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so I'll kind of preface that by saying, I'm a relatively disorganized person. And I don't like have a spreadsheet. I don't really typically think.
You don't have one spread. You don't even have one spreadsheet.
I don't have shit.
You don't have any spreadsheet.
Like people send me a spreadsheet. I'm all, how do you even do this?
I have so many spreadsheets.
Yeah. So being relatively disorganized and kind of and it's like I kind of like wing it. I kind of have always just been like, this project is going to last me through the next project, and then the next project I should probably start to think ahead. Like
you're thinking, so you made enough money from. This is showing that even if you're not organized, you can be a full-time artist, because this gentleman makes a career off of his art.
Yeah.
He's doing it, you guys, without a spreadsheet.
And I feel like, not to go into too much of a tangent from your question, but
it's okay.
But I think it does speak to the many different ways we all approach our art. Sure. Like some of us are, fairly organized. Some of us have certain skill sets that allow us to incorporate what we can do well into our artistic practice. I think I've long ago focused on this idea. It's like, what is success to me? And I break that down to like, what is my day to day? That's my success. So if I can get up when I want to get up, if I can have coffee if I'm seeing people rush to work, but I don't have to get on the freeway, if I can just like slow down and live simply, I mean, being resourceful, all these things, like that became successful to me. The kind of pitfall to that is the disorganization. I'm like, I don't really want to do that, and then I don't do it. And I think, and it's like short term, like, like I can just.
That is a benefit to being your own boss, though.
Yeah, it is. So obviously, there are, again, pitfalls to not being as organized as I could. I miss out on certain things. I don't, I miss out on details. I miss out. I also don't capitalize on like me as a, well, I know brand is a funny word, but I mean, we all do, like, we all have a certain talents. Like, I'm looking around, I'm all, oh, Meg, you do this thing really well. It's like, Erica, you do this. So it's like, we all have this thing that we are really capable of doing, and we know how to do it, and we obsess about it. And so, and I think when it's like in this room and seeing us at different levels of our own personal success, and achieving, like, okay, now I'm at this benchmark, how do I go to the next? So, okay, that's a long-winded way to say, like, I see that for myself. I don't capitalize often on the opportunities as much as I could, because I get hyper-focused on the fact that my day-to-day is chill. I have enough projects. Like, I do okay enough. I'm also mindful of the fact that, like, we're all in this thing together, trying to figure out this weird world of like creating an economy for all of us. And I'm like, I do my best to support my friends and, like, my peers. It's like, how can I hook you up with things? How can I say rad stuff about you so that you can get opportunities? And so that, like, those kind of facets of how I want to conduct my life also mean that I don't focus enough on myself and on, like, what is the next step for me.
Yeah.
To like I don't think about the next tier that I can jump into. I'm maybe so transfixed on, like, what can I do now in order to just, like, again, live my day-to-day in this idea of being successful for myself, and also, like, like, how can I be a part of a community of people, like, at different levels? Like, some are struggling, some really talented people struggle, some people are trying to angle their artistic practice this way, and that's why it's like, damn, we're all just, there's so many of us. It's like Sacramento, like, we have so many talented artists here, and we're not in a, like, gallery rich community or anything like that. Of course, murals are at kind of the zeitgeist of what is, like, cool. And so, fortunately, I already carry that skill set that allows me to sustain myself that way. But having to be malleable to make that happen has been something I've been, working on.
Yeah, when I tap you, it means to wrap up.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm all raw playing the drums.
It's okay. No.
So, yeah. Or roll your eyes. Roll your eyes.
I don't think I can roll my eyes.
Long, deep sigh.
Let's, like, wrap it up for a second. Come on.
I did tell Justina I was going to work on not going into tangents, So, yeah.
Tangent? I liked it.
Okay. No, I liked it too, yeah.
Okay, all right.
It was a good one.
Okay.
Yes, no, thank you for supporting artists. I think that's super important. And I think even though I think that does benefit us too, like, personally, when I support artists, and it's benefiting me because I get to be part of this community and I feel the support come back to me. So I think that's wonderful that you support your peers. That's amazing. I wanted to backtrack a little bit to how you, even though you're not super organized, you might not have a spreadsheet. Welcome. You do have a plan for how your year goes, and you had mentioned this to me where you might have some bigger projects and smaller things. Could you talk a bit about that flow a bit?
Yeah. So, it has its own system, but it's pretty straightforward. Again, without, I would say the extent of any sort of, like, attempts at organization start to happen, like, on my calendar on my phone. Like, I mean, it can be as simple as that. Obviously, so, of course, like, with, like, Beth and I, like, and Lynda, like, projects like that take planning, right? Yeah. And so that's its own level of organization. And I think that, part of what makes, like, why am I here? Like, maybe it speaks to the fact that there's an ability to like work with you and make sure that on the professional level that you desire, that I meet that.
Totally.
Right? And so that,
Totally.
and then I can go back to being kind of like dirtbag me, like when I leave. But like when we work together.
That's not a good term.
Yeah, well, but when we work together.
Super creative guy.
Yeah.
And that's how your brain works.
Right. Well, and I think that ability to be, to like see you at the level you expect, you know, from your artists is, I think, what helps me to realize, like, I do have, like, that is a skill set I have, is like being able to be adaptable and being able to approach this like it's a work. Like, I want to show up on time. I want to be prompt. I want to be as accessible when you need me to, because obviously I want to maintain a working relationship. I want it to not just be like a relationship that it's like, he got the job done. I want it to be like, he's a cool dude. Like, I want to hang out with him, like, on a personal level. And I think that shows when, like, Beth and I are in a public space somewhere and I run into you, I'm all, what's up, man? Like, how are you? Like, and I think that also, along those lines, like how I've established like lasting relationships with people. Like when I worked in Sweden, that was initially a professional relationship. It was like a gallery reaches out, they're like, you want to do a show? I'm like, hell yeah, I do. And then it's like, from the moment I'm there, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so cool. I just want to hang out with you guys. And then we developed this a bond of friendship that transcends the professional relationship. And it's like, shit, we're all trying to figure this out. And same thing wherever I've gone with other projects, like, how can I make a lasting impression, not for like the business sake, but because I sincerely want that, so.
Yeah, I love that. So I know you spoke to what success looks like for you, and part of that is having a chill, I guess, relaxed life. What was I gonna? Oh, so do you say no to things? How do you determine which opportunities or projects to pursue and which ones to say no to?
I think the no is, budget. Budget.
If there's not enough budget?
But with that said, I have worked plenty of opportunity jobs and projects recently where the price point for what I was providing was really low. Mm-hmm. But I also have to take into account certain things, like, how do I pay my rent this month? How do I provide groceries for my, so it's like the practical concerns come into play. I think that, declining stuff, yeah, but like the budget, obviously I've been approached with like it's a great opportunity, exposure, pitch. And so politely declining that, has been important. Because I have more leverage than I used to about work. So knowing that I have value, personally, to what I do, has allowed me enough leverage to kind of work out a compromise if an agency or a person, has a budget that might be kind of low for what I am capable of doing. So it's like, maybe the answer then is like, I'll say no, but I'm also constantly needing, I need to pay my rent. So there's a lot of, kind of like project to project basis, like how do I benefit from this project? How does this project benefit me? Is it a price point that I can work with? Especially being that, like, I leverage by my brand, but I lose leverage by the fact that I love to do what I do. And, people can take advantage of that, you know.
Do you look for your own opportunities, or are you at a point in your career now where most of them are coming to you and people are asking you to do things?
It's a combination. Yeah. So it's a combination of things. Like, I think, did we start through, like, you reached out and maybe there was a private commission and then we had a good relationship with that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so that's how, you know, so with Beth and I was grateful that, you know, Beth, you were able to approach me and say, we have somebody that's interested in your work. And then we established that relationship that way. And those become ideal because, you know, you approach me and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. And I apply to plenty of stuff and I get rejected from plenty of stuff. I am sensitive to rejection. I think, like, probably many of you. It's like, it's hard for me to, like, you know, I'm sensitive. So it's like, if I know you on an interpersonal level and feel like something's not right, I'm hyper fixated on it. Same thing goes with, like, applying for stuff where over time I'm like, damn, like, you know, I maybe thought I was overconfident in my, like, I think I got this, and then it doesn't work out. And so I kind of shift my focus from that to, like, well, you know, maybe that's a sign for me to chill a little bit. So anyway,
I like that. So if you get a rejection, it's a sign for you to chill.
It's like, maybe that's a sign. So it's a combination. Like, I definitely reach out to people, like, periodically with you and Lynda. I'll reach out and be like, hey, you guys got anything going on? Like, anything I can jump on? And I think, and I'm grateful that it's like, no, not right now, man, but you're always on our mind. And I think that maintaining contact with people I've worked with has been one of the things, you know. So.
Yeah. And I think that going back to that, you form a relationship beyond just the business relationship, where it's like you want them to just know you as a cool person, and if you see them out, you're going to say hi to them. I think that helps with just being an artist in this community and having the consultants and other people who are in the position to bring opportunities to you, to have them just know you and be on their mind, like you're on Beth and Lynda's mind, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or in the back of their minds.
Well, it's being fair always, you know, like, and I think from a business sense, being fair, and then from a personal sense, being able to express genuine appreciation for, like, this, like, what we get to do. I mean, in this room alone, there's so many talented people, and we all just have these capabilities to do rad shit. And so it always transcends the professional experience. Like, we all can cultivate something, even when there's, you know, like, if there's no, like, project benefit, there's no budget. Like, it's just like, I just love that I'm a part of this weirdo community, you know?
Yeah, same. So one more question for you before we go to Beth. I know you're a dad, and I think that you seem like a great dad. I know we have some artists who are parents in this room. So could you talk about that balance between being a dad and maintaining your art practice, and maybe how you invite your kids into your practice sometimes as well? Yeah.
So, you know, the girls have grown up with me being an art, like, their whole lives. That's all they've seen. They've been to gallery shows from the time they were babies or whatever. You know, again, it becomes the extension of, like, what's my day to day. If I can live, forge my own path, and while also juggling the more practical issues with, like, domestic life, like, being a good dad is my paramount thing. Like, I want to be a good dad first. I want them to see that, like when I speak on legacy, it's like that I was a present father, and that I did my best to show them, like, how you can forge your path and kind of figure it out as you go. And it's okay to not know everything. And so anyway, with like juggling, I mean, it is just the job. I mean, if I'm working a project, it's kind of surreal when they might show up to like a big mural that I'm working on. Like Zoe and I worked together on that mural with Wiedner in December and January. And it's like, that's a big job. And that's me kind of clocking in, going to work and coming home. And the girls would periodically come by while I'm like up on a lift and I'm like working. And that's like, I mean, I want them to see it's like that's dad working a job. Like it's like this, I don't put a feather in my hair and I'm like, like you have to roll up your sleeves and get to work. And that's like the physicality of that is like the best. And so it's like the hard work, I mean, I can't really work right now because of my back and it's just like, but it's kind of to show, it's like a proof, like I love the warts and all. I love all of the, I love being dirty. I love just getting in there and I want them to see that. And so juggling it becomes just like, it's all kind of one. And maybe that's why it's kind of a, it's like a weird question. It's like, I don't really know. I just know that there's a number of us that are parents, right? And that we are juggling our own like thing while we are trying to be good parents. And man, like, it just becomes like a thing where I compartmentalize. I'm like, done with project, go pick up the girls, shuttle them around, and there's no like, oh God, it's one or the other. It's like, oh fuck, it's from the beginning, it's always,
they're both priorities.
They're both priorities. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for speaking to that a bit.
Of course.
Now I have some questions for Beth. So you might have touched on these a bit in your intro, but I'll ask you anyway. How long have you been working with artists?
Close to 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in my 20s when I started, so now you know how old I am. I started it was all a fluke. It wasn't planned. I started as an art studio student at Sac State. It's where I met my husband. We were both in the art department there. And anyway, I ended up in a gallery downtown, and it was a great experience. But it wasn't planned, it wasn't a strategy, but it was a great way to learn about working with artists. I already knew lots of artists in the community because I was coming out of the program at Sac State. I didn't graduate from that program, by the way. But I think that it has grown in a very organic way to getting me to this point right now.
Yeah, what would you say is your favorite part about working with artists, or a few of your favorite things about this line of work?
Well, it kind of goes back to what Jose was talking about. There's all kinds of artists, and some are more fun, and some are more interesting, and some are better maybe at the business side. I have to say, I don't think this is all the time, but lots of times artists who are really, really great at marketing and business and sales are not the best artists. And it's because it's like two sides of your brain. And my brain, the way my brain works is very two-sided. And one side of my brain is kind of like in a little bit of a dormant place right now, because I used to be like a person who made stuff or wrote stuff. I did a lot of writing, but I've been in business now for a long time. So I have just witnessed that working with artists, it doesn't mean that people who are good at business can't make great art. It just seems that people who are really into their train of thought and what they're making can make the most amazing work. So I love being part of that process, watching that process. I think both Lynda and I love the idea of supporting artists, that the business that we do actually helps support artists in their lives, but also in their spiritual parts of themselves, that we're being supportive of them, their creative process. I feel like it's just been a big blessing for the two of us to have these years together in this community, working with the great artists we've worked with. It's been, wow, I got to do that, and I never planned it, but it all happened.
You mentioned that part of working with artists is supporting them in their business. Can you talk a bit more about, maybe provide some examples of how you and Lynda provide that support?
Well, in the art consulting business, there's a crossover, because looking around this room, some of the artists in this room we have used and try to use in our art consulting business. But then there are many, 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 many artists way beyond JJ and what we did together. And how we are supporting them is, I think, it's kind of like a beautiful cycle, that the more we work with them and work out problems and help them in kind of whatever they are making, whether they're making something for a specific project we're doing, or whether they're just in their studio and we come to them and we find work we need, it's like a wonderful experience to be able to place work that we love and admire in our clients' projects.
Yeah, awesome. So you mentioned that you went to Jose, and I know you and Lynda do some of your own research. Can you talk about the process of finding artists to work with, whether you do that digitally or if you go to studios? Talk about that a bit.
Well, we've worked all over Northern California. Every time I look, I'm looking at Lynda over here. But when we first got together, we were doing sprint work in Nashville and in Oregon, and so that was very interesting.
Sprint, do you mean, is that like the phone company?
It was the phone company.
Oh, okay.
And we were doing these big projects. We did them. I did it in New Mexico, Oregon, and then in Nashville we did that together.
So in their headquarters, they needed art?
It was actually big call centers that they were doing, and they wanted art for that to make their spaces for their employees like more interesting and better. But when we go into communities, especially in healthcare, Kaiser has certain kinds of desires and standards and policies that they do their projects by, and a lot of that has to do with their spaces being appointed in a large part by artists from the community. It doesn't mean that all the work that's going to go into the project is just artists from the community. It can go way beyond that. And usually when we do that, we deeply dive into places, which is really great for us, because then we meet a bunch of artists in Santa Cruz, or a bunch of artists in San Jose, or a bunch of artists in San Leandro or Vallejo. And some of those artists actually ended up being JJ artists, which that was a cool kind of like combination. So we do a lot of that kind of actual, non-digital
research?
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Development and research is what we call it in the beginning of a project. But then we also look online, of course. Nowadays, we might go looking for like artist guilds, artist associations, nonprofit galleries in certain areas, so that we find artists that might work for the projects we're working on. I have to say that our first love was the gallery, because that was creating our work when we put together shows and put an artist's work up and so forth. And most of those relationships came from artists giving us artists. And we had long-standing relationships with those artists. But also that happened in communities. We found artists in communities that then would tell us about other people. Oh, you should look at so-and-so's work. Maybe we were looking for textiles. Maybe we were looking for, ceramics or something like that. And it would open up the door to a lot of other artists. So that kind of networking is exciting.
Awesome. Could you tell us about the process from when you receive a request from a client to finding the artist and determining what type of artwork that they will be making for the client?
Well, a lot of the projects that we do are very large. And so when we begin working on a project, it has a lot to do with just getting oriented to the whole site and space. It could be the outside, the site plan itself, the interiors. And I'm fortunate that I have like a really good memory and I can, like once I start to walk a project, I can really kind of keep it in my head. And then we begin to think about, well, what are the very important parts of the project, I mean the heart of the project, or the really like the junctures in it that you want people to notice. And so then we would begin a plan like, okay, who would be good to present to them for those areas? And bringing it back to like Jose, so we had a smaller project at UC Davis Health, and it is one of their entrances. Of course, COVID effed it all up, but it was happening just as COVID was getting going. And it was a main entrance from a big parking lot. And that was the commission that we did with Jose there. We'd done a smaller project with him on another like another clinic that we did with them. But that was, you know, we thought about who would be good. Well, he's got a big mural right outside the door, so a flat piece outside the door, but it's big, it's giant, it's pretty glorious. And we thought, wouldn't it be beautiful to bring three-dimensional work to this entrance? It was a big wall with some good lighting, and that's how, you know, we approached him to do that. And I remember negotiating price. The kind of images the client was liking of his work. Usually when we do a project like that that has particular sites, we will suggest a few artists for those sites, and then the client then kind of weighs in on who they like the best. And, you know, we do a lot of that kind of presentation.
When you first go in and you said you walk the project, do you mean that you're walking the space of where the project will be?
We walk it like digitally first, which is the hardest part.
So do they send you photos?
No, what we get is our site plans, furniture plans.
Okay.
We really like furniture plans because the artwork's, of course, around furniture and space like that. But we get to know it that way. And then as soon as we can get into the project and actually walk it, when the drywall is up, that helps the space become a real space. That helps us to start working on appointing the space.
So would you say that a lot of the spaces that you visit are new developments? Is that why you're not able to see them right?
Well, if they're new big projects, yes. Sometimes they're refresh projects. Like we did for Kaiser, I think we finished it in 2023. Folsom, they have a big MOB or medical office building out there, 3 stories. It was already built out and everything. They just wanted to redo the whole thing. And if you ever go there, it's really cool. It turned out really, really good. A lot of good community artists in it.
Well, and maybe the last giant one for the UC Davis Health was the
Ice Center.
And so, you know, ground up, you see the plans prior to it even going into construction and starting to think about where the big commissions are, like a 2-story Roger Berry,
right
behind all these reception desks. It's really needed like a repetitive, more of a, like a digital program. So yeah, it's kind of
it's like something that
it's not very
when I started, I couldn't have done it.
No problem.
When I started, in fact, one of my first projects was a Kaiser project. I knew an architect who had gone to work for Kaiser. I was just starting my business. My husband's involved in architecture and interior design, and he said, hey, we're doing this little clinic at Morse Avenue, you know, do you want to like work with us on it?
Kids were young and you were making different decisions.
Yes. So I ended up, you know,
it's very important.
Yeah, but I couldn't have done some of the bigger projects that we've done back then. It took a few years to get to that point.
So one of the things that's kind of going around our community right now is artists feeling a bit undervalued, or a lot undervalued sometimes, for their work and their time and their talent. So I'm wondering, how do you decide what to pay artists, and how does that process work with, you know, does the artist have say? Or if you could talk about that a bit, that would be great.
Well, that probably Lynda and my experience with that started, you know, as gallery people, because I was a gallery person before I was an art consultant. In art consulting and the kind of projects we do, you know, different clients have different kinds of budgets. And if we were to start with like a brand new artist that we like the work, or they'd introduce themselves to us, or we'd somehow found them and started to talk price, we have a lot of experience, selling work, and we know what it's going to sell for, and we would just do our best in a sensitive way to kind of talk to them about what to expect. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of goes from there. It's, when you're brand new and just getting going, lots of times artists, they are so inexperienced that they might think, well, this is $5,000. Okay, what I'm making here is $5,000. We're thinking,
Or they might undervalue themselves sometimes too.
Oh, too. They could undervalue themselves too. So it's just, I think it's humanity. It's being sensitive to people who we want to support anyway. That we want to help them get on their way. So we do our best to just inform them of kind of like what's going to work, and then negotiate it and go from there.
But I assume it's a conversation that happens at the beginning. There's like no surprises. The artists know what they're getting into from the very beginning.
I think.
Well, the worst thing is if a client doesn't have a budget. In fact, right now we have a proposal out, and we absolutely, if they can't accept that it costs money,
we're not doing it.
Yeah, it's like, well, sorry, we can't help you because we're not going to take it on the backs of an artist.
Yeah, so your support and
Without
advocacy.
Their fee and our fee. We're just not going to do more, like Jose said.
Yeah, we don't have time to do something.
We've exposed ourselves enough, I think.
Right. It's the idea that, Lynda and I did it too early on, a restaurant saying, like a really fine, good restaurant, not just a coffee shop, wanting us to put art in there. Well, we did put art in there. We never sold one thing. I don't know if anybody ever noticed it or anything. Yeah, we never did that again. You have to.
You gotta try stuff.
And when you're really working at it, every day, then it becomes like, where are my efforts really going to bear fruit? And I have to tell you, trained as an artist and a poet. I think she's a psychology major. I don't know. We are not trained as business people. And my husband wasn't trained as a business person. And to tell you the truth, is probably why, we kind of are the business. What?
What did she say? This is a business series.
I know it is.
No, that's fine.
That's what I'm trying to say. I've been in business for 35 years. And we never went bankrupt. We never had to file bankruptcy. But
I'm happy about that.
Yes, we're very happy about that. It could have happened. Did I touch my chest? Oh, God, I'm sorry. Anyway.
Well, I love hearing that you advocate for the artists that you work with in that way, making sure that they're paid fairly.
Yes.
Making sure that you're not taking on clients that aren't giving you an adequate budget to work with.
Yes.
I love hearing that. You mentioned another way that you advocate for artists when I visited to do a site visit here, about clients and their guidelines, and I know you like to let artists express themselves. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Often the client already has in mind what they think they want. And it might not be a good idea, but maybe it's their business or their space or whatever. They're kind of like got this idea. And what we really try to inform and educate our clients about is the great opportunity they have in working with artists who make things and who have ideas that they don't know about what an artist is going to come up with. So we often encourage them to give the artist an opportunity to just do the proposal, to visit the site, to look at what's the atmosphere, and hear about what the client wants, and then let the artist come up with a proposal. So we often make sure that our artist, even if the client doesn't go forward with it, the artist gets a design fee for their proposal. And then that can be applied to the commission going forward. Nobody ever does anything for nothing. Nobody. Everybody gets paid for their effort.
Applause for that.
Yeah.
Get paid, you guys. Make sure you get paid. Wonderful. So now I'd like to invite you both back to the discussion. And I know Beth, you touched upon the commission that you did with Jose at UC Davis Health, but could you tell us a bit more about that project, how it started, when Jose was brought in?
Well, working with, we were working with Nancy. So University Tower is one of the main entrances at UC Davis Health. It's right by the big parking lot on the Stockton Boulevard side. Jose had already done this really big, beautiful mural. I don't know, it's about 20-some feet high.
Gosh.
8 feet high.
No, it's
8 feet
way bigger than
wide.
that. Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really tall.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
really wide. Yeah,
Right.
and it's beautiful. And we knew Jose's work beyond that in the community. So we presented. I can't remember if we presented other people or not. I think we did. I think we probably presented other artists to address this kind of like inset, and they chose Jose. They loved his work. We were doing kind of a whole kind of L shape there on the corridor, and another wonderful artist that we found in San Jose, who's Iranian, she did a beautiful work for the corridor, but Jose's the kind of like entrance and the woo-woo piece, and 3 beautiful wooden pieces, very colorful, that look really great together. And as I say, if you were ever going in that space, if you're in the hospital already, you can get there, but it's hard to kind of get into here.
It's staff only now.
Yeah, now it's a staff entrance rather than anybody coming out of the parking lot. They have to go into the hospital. But they're beautiful pieces, and they were very, very happy with them. It was very successful.
Can you tell us about how Beth came to you for that and how you conceived the project from there?
Well, the initial correspondence was, it was email, and we had already established a relationship. So it was sort of like we could approach each other informally. You're like, hey man, hope things are good, and here's this new potential project for you if you're interested. And so it's sort of like starts off light like that, and then you set kind of the general parameters of what I might be expecting to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that they had in mind, they were interested in my work, but it was one of those things where in seeing the body of work, they wanted some specifics. It was like, I don't want outer space. I'd like to see more of just like a ombre kind of color palette, something that was a little bit more refined and not as dynamic as what was outside. It's like, okay, that makes sense. We can work with that. And Julian's here. I worked with Julian on fabricating those pieces because we were creating a die cut piece, right? So it was
Can you explain what they are?
Yeah, exactly. So the overall dimensions, they were
40?
Yeah, 40 inch. So, whatever, and
like wooden panels?
Wooden panels. And so I believe we might have made the decision to have them sort of die cut, so according to size. So if it was octagon, it was going to be an octagon shape. Not like a panel, like a square panel. And
they're all shaped in a shape.
So I approached my friend Julian, who was able to fabricate these panels, and it was an interesting back and forth. It's like I remember approaching and said, "What is the weight limit?" Because we had already fabricated these, and they were quite heavy. And he said, "Oh, they're this weight." I was like, "Okay."
We made it.
Julian. Yeah,
we made it.
Yeah, it was like, Julian, can we shave?
40 pounds for the insurance or something like that.
Yeah.
So I already built them and weighed them, and
So
he gave me that call, and I literally just went outside and started
shaving
as much material out of the back.
Well, but see, I think where did Linda go? She left.
I'm right here. I'm going to try and find a picture.
No, what I remember happening was in the hospital, when you do work in hospital, if there's no backing behind it, it has to be 25 pounds and under. But that's like and it can't stick out for ADA purposes beyond 4 inches. These didn't, the depth wasn't the problem, but what happened was it all had backing. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have to worry about, so because they were 40 pounds, over 25 pounds, it was okay because we already had backing.
Yeah.
So I carved all that for nothing?
No, but I fooled you.
It took a while to find out.
What do you mean by backing? What's the
They
backing?
put like wood backing or metal backing sometimes, but this would
Oh, like on the actual wall?
in
Under
behind,
the drywall,
under the drywall, when
Oh,
they
okay.
build it out.
so that you can really.
So it's like
You can
more
reinforce
secure to
it.
put a heavier thing.
Right, so they were planning to do something of significance in this space. And it had lighting, and it was like really going to be good. And I just had to verify that the backing was there, and that always takes a while.
So I'm hearing that Jose went to Julian for his own fabrication, but are there times when an artist has a big idea, but they don't necessarily have their own fabricators? Do you assist with that or maybe connect them?
Well, we know some fabricators, but everybody we've ever worked with already kind of is along their path far enough
Right.
that they've got that happening.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I didn't have the capacity to create something on that professional, like creating a die cut piece was like, oh man, like obviously approaching Julian, who is more than capable to do that.
Right.
I mean, yeah, and that speaks to that answer. Is like, you knew I could handle it, and I was like, yeah, I got this, and I'm going to connect with Julian. And then, in a more recent project at Arden Fair, our friend Trent, who was able to fabricate panels for and so it does start, it extends beyond what I can do, and then how can I bring this in so that more people can, benefit
From it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Related to that, my studio mate Meg is in the audience, and I'm going to put you on the spot. She recently brought up something like, we see these requests for proposals for these big projects, but how do artists who are just starting out or haven't done these big projects, how do you even know how to go about this? And I'm hearing a lot that it's collaboration, working with other experts, project managers, writers, fabricators, designers. Can you talk a bit about collaboration? And
So I will, like, exhibit A with that question is calling, like Jaya yesterday. When I called you and said, yo, this proposal came out, what are they asking? What are the parameters? I don't get it. And you're like, I don't get it either. and I think it's sort of that is what it takes. It's like, and so now we have, like, Jaya and I are gonna start this network. It's like, we're gonna figure this out. And I want you to be in it. I want to be in it. I want all of our friends to be in it. And so how do we make this calculus of a proposal like turn into basic math so that we can understand it? Because Jaya mentioned in our phone conversation yesterday, you said, we have, I mean, we're seen as more established artists, right? So it's like we've navigated these minefields before, and we've been able to, we have some experience with it. But a lot of our talented friends who might be just emerging artists are going to be like, shit, this isn't for me. Like, I'm way too intimidated by this thing. Like, and there's no way I'm not going to get it.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not even going to try. And I think in our conversations, there's like, dude, we have to change that. We have to change the fact that if it's this kind of like mural proposal and they're making us jump through hoops in order to get it, it's like they're not coming from an artistic background where they understand the process necessary to streamline it. They're used to working with more of the, like business-minded people creating, like in their proposal. Yeah, like proposals for corporations, proposals that people with those.
or like
design firms and stuff. And because, the little people, it's like we look at it and I'm glazed over. I'm like, I kind of want to give up, but I don't want it because I need the money. So Jaya, what's up? I know you've seen this. So what's your take? And that rapport with my friends who also kind of can commiserate and also can share in like the highs and lows of what this means is like that's kind of what it takes. You know, it's like reaching out to Julie, and it's reaching out to make sure that like person knows how to do this way better than me, and I'm not like, I ain't too proud to be. I want them to like, I want to share whatever opportunities I get with you too, at whatever capacity, you know, in a fair way.
Yeah, I love that. And that's related to advice I usually give with writing grants and applications, is to always have someone else look at it, especially someone who's not super familiar with your work. When I applied for the Del Rio Trail project as a project manager, I sent my proposal to my business coach, Kate, who is sitting here, to look at it. So even though I have a ton of experience writing and have written proposals before, it was really great to get that second set of eyes on it, someone who's experienced with that type of thing. So yeah, it's all about having your network, really making friends in your community and supporting each other. Just wanted to highlight that again. Well, I'll just do one more question before we get into our audience Q&A, and that is if each of you could give one piece of advice to artists who are looking to professionalize their practice or to see themselves more as a business person.
Well, I think an event like this is so helpful. I mean, I feel inspired, you know, about this event, and all of the artists here and everyone, you know, interested in making their way and doing better at what they do. And but I really I really think that having a network is very important, but also if you have people that, as you think about presenting yourself, like I was talking about before, really being cohesive about it. You know, we spend a lot of time in our studio alone, making things on a train of thought, you know, kind of, it's a very isolating and internal kind of practice, but at the same time, it's so important to get out of the studio, have people come to the studio, have people look at the work, be in conversation. You know, a lot of people that we know have had critique groups in the past, which are a great way to kind of bounce things off each other, not just about what you're making and the kind of content, but also about the things we're talking about today. It is unfortunate that there's not enough galleries in Sacramento. We could maybe use another collaborative like Access or something like that. I mean, if we're not going to have, or if anybody's interested in starting a gallery, you know, that would be great.
Just do it, you guys.
Yeah, we need one of those. But that's what I would say is, yes, it's an isolated kind of practice as a visual artist, but getting other people to look at your work and having the kind of network that Jose was talking about, I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Jose? One piece of advice?
I mean, I think what Beth said is right on, you know. And I think along that, you know, I'm from a practical sense, I have those certain tenets I have, right? And one of the things I mentioned to you the other day is like avoid avoidable debt, so that I can pursue like my craft in the way I want, so I'm not bogged down by having to go work. And part of that stems from my own history, where I came to a point early on in my life where I was like, I'm working factory jobs to pay off something and I can't fulfill my own life. And so what starts to happen is, before I got into art, I was already establishing this philosophy of how I wanted to conduct myself. And then, so the artistic facet is just one facet of many facets of how I want to live my life. So to bring this to like the question is like, learning how to be more concise and learning how to package like who I am, but to remain true to my like sensibilities has been important. So I want people to know, like in working with Beth, I want to know like, yeah, he's a weird dude, but damn, when we work together, he's great. And that becomes, that's like,
We never called you a weird. We never did.
Yeah, but I
Good thing anyway.
yeah, and I think that is its own like part of a business approach. You know, it's like I want you to know that you're getting real. Oh, sorry, Carlos. You're getting real me. You know, you're like I'm showing up warts and all, but I'm also going to be like let's work together. Hell yeah, and that's something that as far as like kind of a business approach, I mean, that is my business approach. It's like you're gonna get real with me, but you're also gonna I'm also gonna meet you where you're at in what you need, and you know, at first that takes work to get kind of a track record, but at this point, I'm really proud of the fact that that's how I established myself, and that's how I'm going to continue to do that, no matter how successful I'm seen. You know, that people that know me on the street level are like, "Fuck, he's just a dude trying to figure this out," and he's had some advantages that I would like to know about, and I'm always willing to teach, you know, or to work out together, you know.
You heard it, everyone. Call Jose with your questions. I'm just kidding.
I don't care. Hit me up.
Well, thank you for being that resource. And I also want to thank you for always supporting me. I met Jose when I first moved to Sacramento, and every time I've asked him to participate in an Art Tonic thing, or actually before Art Tonic, I had a radio show at KDBS and he was on the show. So thank you for always being down to support me.
DIY,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You know.
So we have time for a few questions. Does anyone have a question for either Beth or Jose?
Okay.
Go ahead, Kate.
It's a quick, easy one.
Yeah.
Thank you all for doing this too, by the way. It's really
You're welcome.
helpful and so fun to hear what your experiences are. But you're talking about the UC Davis artwork. I know you can't get into the hospital anymore and just like wander the hallways. Are there photos of it anywhere?
I know. Oh, sorry,
no,
Beth.
you
But
I haven't
can see
from
the
your
photos from the outside.
studio. I can't find it installed.
You know, I have it on my Instagram. It's
Okay.
kind of a video, so where I'm kind of like walking around. I know I didn't document it as
What
much.
month is it? Like how far back do we have to scroll?
Oh, was this
I tried.
2021 or
I
2020?
think it was 2021, 2020, 2021, because it was at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
That's why the
how
space
fast I can
became
do
really
this.
cluttered, because they had a lot of security and stuff there.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I have a question. So I'm not an artist, I'm a collector, but my dad is an artist and feel that he's always been very talented. But I agree with you that sometimes the artists are in a more introspective sort of space, not necessarily, I would say, exposure driven. I think every artist wants to be exposed to the point to share their vision, their artwork with others. But I feel that in many cases, it's a daunting experience for most of them to see if my art is good enough, if people are going to appreciate it enough. For me, being an art collector, I love the relationships that we can have with artists. I know many of the artists here. And my question is, you know, as somebody who is not in the artistic world per se, you know, how can I probably lend my knowledge? I'm an interior designer, but I'm also very business driven. So to me, it's like, you know, how can I maybe help support some of your visions? You know,
It's not the right call.
like I feel like,
Yeah,
how
thank
can I do it? How can I help, you know,
So
the
my-
art community?
Mai's question is, as
I'm going to hand this to you. Continue
Oh,
with your
nice.
question so we don't have to.
Yeah, sorry.
in a
Mai's
minute.
question is, as an arts collector, as an arts supporter, business owner, interior designer, how can she support artists in our community? And I just want to start the answer by coming to these, Mai, and chatting and meeting people during the networking sessions, and maybe exchanging information, telling them what you do, asking what they do is a great way to start. I know, or just even connecting with people like myself who work with artists on a very regular basis. You know, if I know anyone that might need resources, I think that's a good place to start. How about you guys? Do you have any advice?
Well, are you thinking in terms of like integrating art into the projects you do?
Not necessarily. It's just, in my business practice, I feel like people like pretty spaces, but they're not necessarily all art driven. Then
Right.
you might probably want to say, hey, cool piece will look good in this wall, but
Right.
a lot of people sometimes have this expectation that art can be very expensive.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just like, their taste might not be anything beyond maybe a photograph of their family. So, you sometimes deal with that.
No, of
especially
course you do.
residential.
Yeah, we understand that.
But in a way, for me, it's just like, hey, if he has a legal part of it, like, Jose was saying, Jai, it's like, hey, we have difficulty, learning the terms of contracts or things like that where, maybe people like me that are not artists, and we don't need to focus our efforts into being creative, to have maybe like a network or something where like maybe I can be educated on how to create the spreadsheets to make the easy math for artists to be able to apply. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, you're making
like
sense.
getting educated
Yeah.
to be able to help out probably with the strengths that I have versus, the creation of things.
Right.
Just to have it accessible.
Yeah, right now I've actually been having discussions with people that there's a need for some kind of directory in Sacramento of like artists and art service providers, and just so people can connect, because like what Jose was talking about, a lot of getting things done in the art community is working in collaboration with others, because I mean, maybe some artists can do everything, but I think it's rare to find an artist that can do the finances and can do the project management and can read the contracts, like their expertise is the art. So for artists to be able to have access to a network of people like you and me and Kate Farrell and Julian and others who offer these other resources, Janine, who does photography as well, I think that's just really beneficial. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers, besides offering like a specific service where it's like your business to help artists, that would be a separate thing. You mean just more like on a casual basis,
Yeah,
right?
I think, on a casual basis, like, I have never read an artist contract, and I'm sure, that I would not like to be stepping on anybody's skills either, right? Because that's your business, like, but, to, let's say, almost in a way like an internship for me to get educated so we can help, maybe artists for free, right? Like, I have, I want to say I have lots of time, but,
Right.
maybe I can dedicate some time to, if I get educated on things to be able to pass that knowledge.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm just like Mai, just call me, I'll put you to work, like, just.
Yeah, but that type of thing,
Yeah, I think a lot of it is networking, connecting, and finding out who the people are that are working with artists regularly, or just connecting with artists directly like you're doing. So I think that you're already doing it. And
Yeah.
I know from personal experience that you're already such a great supporter and advocate of the artists that you collect from. So, yeah.
It's an interesting thing, like accessibility, like from an like art consultant perspective and like art patron, it's its own, like has its own ability to connect. Obviously, you're connecting with patrons, and then the artists, we're connecting with each other. So it's like I'm thinking about, like, even I think it was this morning, I sent a text to like Joha, right? You, Bernie, like an art grant, right? Yeah. Well, and it's like, and it's thinking like I'm following my own wavelength of access towards others, like making sure that my peers have access to the information I just got in front of me, right? And then all of us on that kind of plane being like, okay, this is our ability to connect. Like one of us hopefully can connect to that opportunity. And so trying to bridge that gap so that like you and I don't know each other, right? But I'm like, But of course, when you say, I'm a collector, I'm all.
You're like, I don't know.
Yeah. So it's creating that that access where neither feels daunting, where neither feels like shit. But I want to say something so that. And maybe learning to just, again, I was talking about rejection and my aversion to it, but it's like, that's kind of like, I have to take that step to just be like, what's up? How are you? And then if it's like, oh, I'm actually interested in this guy, I was like, oh, I have just the person, and making sure that as like with my network of artists, friends, I'm like, making sure that my friend, if it's not me, it's my friends that get the jobs, you know. Oh, and by the way, this is the photo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kate, you were curious?
Thank you. Just even the one you had on Instagram. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it's not. This is, yeah, Justina, you have the video I think I sent you, but
yeah.
these are the pieces for that.
Any
That's
other?
not the right color.
We have time for
Yeah.
one more question. Go ahead. Yeah.
So y'all mentioned that in Sacramento we need more galleries.
Yes.
That is the demand that there's a demand for galleries. What does it take to make a gallery sustainable, to continue running for many years? Like, I would imagine we would require like art dealers and art buyers and people who price the art, and to have like ongoing events and gallery spaces so that it's an ongoing thing, that transactions are happening. Like what does that look like to continue having, to put it frankly, a profitable gallery space to continue running, especially in these rent prices?
You mean if a person was thinking, or some people were thinking this is something they want to do?
Yes.
So I'm just going to restate the question really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question was, what does it take to run a successful gallery? Right? Basically?
On an accounting basis, right? But also like to be respected in the community.
Well, the thing I would say is the very first thing that has to happen, it has to be, if it's going to be a gallery that's going to be meaningful, it has to come from not like thinking I'm going to open a space and show art that people want to buy. That'll kill it. Mm-hmm. You have to have the passion within you and your partners or whoever you are, maybe you're a group of artists that we want to put on great shows. We want to put on important, thought-provoking, deep, interesting, fun. You know, you want it to be something super vibrant and interesting, first of all, because if it's not that, then it's not going to be very good. And then after that, you know, you have to think, there's so many things you have to think about. The stuff we've been talking about today, like the money part of it. You need a space that's not going to cost a lot of money. It can't cost a lot. And if you could get someone to give you the space, that would be great. Because it's going to be very hard to build up to a point where you're going to actually be making enough money to take care of your overhead. But I mean, other than that, it really has a lot to do with a passion for art and artists and how important they are to the culture. You know, and right now in Sacramento, Lynda and I were involved in galleries back when there was like 9 or 10 like good galleries. I mean, that were in competition with each other, but it's healthy competition because the more that's happening, the better. The more people will talk about art, the more artists we get to see, it all becomes the thing. That's how the whole Second Saturday thing started, you know, because there were so many places to go. So it's something that Sacramento culture needs. I think, though, that we all know that from, you know, COVID, all of our culture, and at the times we're living in too, but our theater, dance, music, everything is suffering and struggling, and we all need to like support it all more. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you.
I have
go ahead.
a follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because what you also just said, it feels like a little bit impossible. Like, it sounds very beautiful. It sounds like really cool. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I want to go to that show. But like, a person who's like, oh, I want to open a gallery and I want to make those provoking shows, but then like not having the art, like, you know, saying like, not art that's going to sell, or like, where does like the money like match that desire to like put that thing in our community? And then like the city is like, you know, gonna slash our budget probably this year coming up. Like the art budget is gonna take another hit. So it's like, how does the money flow to a project that wants, like, the passion is there, but like, where does the money happen then? You know, like.
Well, I think it's a trick. It's not like, there's not like a formula, but I would say the most important part of the formula is that whoever is opening the gallery has a vision, a background, education, you know, in art, I mean, you got to have this whole kind of combination of stuff to bring to it. And artists, you know, I mean, we all know artists that we admire and that need to have places to show, but you have to have that in the beginning. But yes, to get people to buy it is the next. And the reason I said that, if you just think, I'm going to have a gallery and I'm going to show work that I know people are going to buy, people don't know what they should buy. Basically, that's the issue. And then you start showing them what they should buy. What did we used to call it? We are taste makers. We as not just Lynda and me, but all the different people who have the like impetus, desire to have a gallery space, support artists, show artists, get artists out into the community. We know what we think is good. Now another person may think other things are very good, and that's what makes a vital and really thriving gallery community. And I know we're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time, but I just wanted to add, this gallery conversation, it could be a whole semester in school. And I want to say that one of the goals of this series is to empower you all to see yourself as business owners, because each and every one of you is a business owner if you're earning money from your art, and to know that business resources are for you. So there's a lot of business accelerators, especially in this area. We're so close to Silicon Valley. They might say like startup accelerator, but that's still for you. You're a startup. You could be a startup, and you could take those. And if you have an idea that you want to start your gallery, you could take a business accelerator or another business course and develop your idea for a gallery. And let me tell you, I didn't think as an arts person that business was for me, but when I took my first business class, I felt like business owners are artists too, because they're making something out of nothing. That's art. So I kind of see when I do business that's part of my art. So I just want to empower you all to use those resources as well. This is indeed a business series being funded by the Office of Innovation and Economic Development, which is for businesses. So just FYI, just want to let you guys know that. And I know you wanted to say one last thing, and then we should wrap it up.
Oh, no. I should say, in continuation with that gal, I mean, it's a reminder that like JJ, it's its own gallery and it's its own structure. There is also like, when I think of like Wall Market Gallery, that's more DIY, and that's its own structure.
Yes.
And that works.
Yes.
It's not and the benefit there is like there's already the space. They don't have to pay rent to create, and they created something dynamic out of nothing. And I think you have this kind of like spectrum where it's like this established has its own set of kind of like functioning rules to become sustainable, and then you have the down to the DIY style, like let's just make this thing out of nothing. We have this space, or it's like Broadroom creating something so that it's like a communal element, and it has its own philosophy on how it works. So it kind of basically the idea is you make your rules, you make you make the gallery successful in your own vision. And I think that's like, sometimes you wing it, sometimes you just go all in and just like, fuck, I don't know. And then sometimes it's like, okay, we're executing this thing and it's working, that's what we're going to continue with. And I mean, there's so many of us that are like creative problem solvers. I think that, you know, we're coming to a point where, because of the rent issues and stuff, we do have to kind of create our economy for us. And, you know, how does that look like? How do we do it? But hell, man, I'm always down to work ideas, you know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all for being a great audience. Thanks to Beth and Jose and Julie, who I think may have had to leave a bit early.